I was born into a humble family on the south bank of the Han River. My parents had meager incomes. Mom had to take on odd jobs every day, and I had to handle the household chores upon her return to sustain our meager existence. My birth further exacerbated the burden on my family. When I reached school age, before each school term began, Mom and Dad would always lower their heads and go from door to the neighbors, borrowing money to fund my tuition. With the hard-earned tuition fees in hand, I knew deep in my heart how heavy the burden was. I told myself that the only way to repay my parents was to study hard and achieve success in the future. Despite the difficult circumstances, from primary school to secondary school, my grades had always been among the top few in the school. However, after the high school entrance examination, my family could no longer afford to continue my studies. I had no choice but to give up and embark on the path of part-time work. In the vast university of society, I learned many things that weren't in textbooks. The hustle and bustle of the city fascinated me. It wasn't long before I found my life partner. He was 2 years older than me and wasn't very talkative, but he gave me a sense of security. No matter what problems I encountered, as soon as I saw him, all my troubles vanished. In the spring of the second year of meeting him, we walked hand in hand into the palace of marriage. After getting married, we opened a small video store together. During the day, he went to work and I managed it alone. In the evenings, he would come to help me after work. From the hardships of starting a business to the joys of success, it took us almost 2 years. By the time we renovated the shop, our daughter was born. This was God's favor for me. I often thought so. I had a husband, a lovely daughter, and an abundant life. What else could I be dissatisfied with? Alas, at this time, someone who shouldn't have appeared suddenly entered my life. It made me plunge headlong into the trap of discontent and lose myself ever since. It was winter, with snowflakes fluttering outside. Aerospace walked into my shop as usual. He was a friend of my husband and knew me well, which was why he often rented discs at my place for free. That day, he picked up 2 more discs and then said something casually. "Come on, there's no one in the store right now. Since I'm not paying for the discs, I'll treat you to dinner." A half-joking, polite invitation from Aerospace, but for some reason, I had an unprecedented impulse. I don't know why I was like this. It seemed as if I had been waiting for his invitation. So, I promptly agreed to him. We had lunch together that day and only then did I realize that we were so in tune. Our understanding of life was astonishingly consistent. In addition to the surprise, we began to have frequent contact. It wasn't long before we held each other's hands. Like me, he had a family and children, and his life was going well. I knew this long ago, but I didn't care. The curiosity and the thrill of pursuing excitement and passion made me bolder and bolder. I felt that having an underground lover was a very delightful thing. Moreover, Aerospace was a nice person, easygoing and humorous, which complemented my husband's honest and straightforward character. Why wouldn't I go for it? After a subsequent date, half reluctantly and half willingly, I ended up with Aerospace on the bed in a hotel room. Aerospace didn't disappoint me. He was excited and passionate, reigniting the fire of love that had long been dormant in me. His sexual energy was so strong, completely different from my husband. He gave me a different kind of excitement, and I couldn't help but be captivated by him. Afterwards, lying in his arms, I felt like I had made the right decision. Aerospace loved me. I knew that I could sense his love for me from his breath and his eyes. Such breathing, such eyes, filled me with strength. For his sake, it was worth taking the risk. The pampering I received from my husband was doubled in aerospace. When I thought of two men loving and caring for me like this, I felt extremely happy. Since then, my love was split in half and an unprecedented sense of pride filled my heart. On the surface, my husband and I lived as before, secretly. I corresponded with aerospace. I was carried away by this happiness and often questioned myself like this. Why did you get married? What about the children? I have no freedom. Under the control of this warped mentality, I became dissatisfied. I would often lash out at my husband for no apparent reason. If I was the slightest bit unhappy on ordinary days, I would pour out all my complaints on him. Once, because of a minor incident, I snatched the favorite watch he had worn for many years and threw it forcefully to the ground. Then I saw him crying, but I still wasn't satisfied. I shouted at his back, complaining that he never blessed me. The honest and kind husband endured all this in silence. In fact, he had heard the ambiguous rumors about me and aerospace long ago, but he still believed that aerospace was just a good friend of mine and that I was an extroverted person, which was why such rumors existed. His forbearance made me more arrogant and unruly. After all, there's no hiding the truth forever. Aerospace's lover sensed what was going on between us and clamored for a divorce from him. Our underground romance became tense because of this. Otherwise, let's break up, Aerospace said hesitantly. My wife, she's been hurt too much. We seem to have gone a little too far. So what about me? I was provoked by him. Aren't you afraid that I'll be hurt? Let me tell you, it's impossible for us to break up. I was truly heartbroken. The thought of him taking back all the goodness he had given me and returning it to his wife tormented my heart with insane jealousy. Was his family important and my happiness not? I had given so much affection. Had he lied to me when he said he loved me? I couldn't swallow this and didn't want to be abandoned by him. So, I started to argue fiercely with him and even hit him with my hands. My clothes were also torn in the scuffle. About a month later, I heard that Aerospace had divorced. Aerospace moved out of the house alone and the child followed the mother. I knew I had won. Aerospace's divorce became known to everyone. I hadn't had time to celebrate my great victory in this love when my husband placed a divorce agreement on paper in front of me. His only request was that he wanted our daughter. This was retribution for me. Now it was my turn to face the same problem as Aerospace, but I was starting to panic. I never imagined that one day I would be in such an embarrassing situation when faced with this problem. I couldn't get a divorce. I still had feelings for my husband. It hadn't been easy for us to get to where we were. Today, B says, how could my child be without a mother? Faced with my determination, my husband didn't scold or force me, nor did he utter a word of complaint. It was just that he no longer smiled and didn't care for me as much as before. His body also lost a lot of weight. There was no longer a cozy atmosphere at home. Our young daughter didn't know what kind of crisis was unfolding round her. She was often taken by her dad. Her thoughtful eyes and frightened tears made me feel heartbroken. She didn't know that every night after she fell asleep, her mother would fall into even greater trepidation. My mind cleared up and I began to think, if I lost my family, if I left my husband and children, would I still be able to live? When I thought about it, my tears flowed involuntarily. Only then did I realize how much I loved them. I hated my past actions and deeds, but it was too late. Since Aerospace's divorce, I never heard from him again. This situation left me in a deep state of self-remorse. I achieved my goal, but I was in extreme pain. It was my selfishness that hurt him, his family, and my family. I was a sinner, the culprit who ruined two happy families.